Topic of my talk today is a web developer's journey into Node.js. So this started last November when I joined UrbanTouch. So UrbanTouch was written in Magento initially. It's a PHP-based e-commerce framework. So it was startup, they used Magento, just got the site out. But over the period of time, when the traffic increased, they realized it's not scaling. The traffic is bringing the site down and slowing the speed. So that's when they decided, like, let's switch the framework. And when I joined them, they were writing it in Node.js. So my talk today is gonna share my experiences while doing that, and in the process, we'll learn what is Node.js actually. So let's get started. So that's the agenda for the talk today. Why UrbanTouch moved away from LAMP? What happened? What were their pain points? And then why Node.js, not any other regular synchronous traditional programming language like Ruby, Python, PHP. And then, of course, what is Node.js? And then what it takes to develop a website in Node.js. What all tools are available out there which makes developing a website in Node.js easy. And then how it helped UrbanTouch to perform and scale better. Like we are running, our UrbanTouch currently is running on Node.js. It's live, it's out there for the last 3 months. So, first of all, what didn't work with LAMP? What was wrong with LAMP which didn't work for UrbanTouch? So, as I said before, it was written on Magento. It's a very good tool. It's a really good tool if you're launching your site, if you're starting your own company. It will help you to build up a site in like 1.5 months and it's out there. And the reason is it's generic. It's written for all, it's a generic framework. It's like 6,000 plus files and really complicated. So they used Magento, they brought the site out in last year, January, but as the traffic increased, I said, and when they had to customize it for their needs, it was really complex. It was just adding on to the complexity. And of course, over the period of time, the site was slow. And it was good for initial site launch, but it didn't help them. So that was the major pain point, which forced them to switch to another framework. And then why Node.js? So they had a choice. They could have used any language they want. But their major pain point was scalability. It was not taking the load. As the number of concurrent connections, the traffic increased, it was slowing down. So they wanted to have a language which addressed that problem first. And Node.js just do that. I mean, Node.js is, the main focus point is performance. It's extremely fast, scalable, responsive. Reason being, it's written on V8. Node is a wrapper around V8. Set of bindings which are written on the V8, and V8 is actually your JavaScript engine. It's a runtime environment for Chrome. And all the other golden words, as you can say, it's non-blocking, and it's JavaScript both on the UI and server side. So Node.js is a server side JavaScript language, and it has been used, and now the community is mature enough. They have developed really good advanced modules out there, which are used by serious companies to develop professional, scalable e-commerce websites. So this is just a testimony I've taken it from the homepage of Node.js, like LinkedIn. I know the text is not very clear. I'll read the one from LinkedIn. It says, on the server side, our entire mobile software stack is completely built in Node. One reason was scale. The second is Node showed us huge performance gains. And the similar testimonies from the other side, like eBay and Yahoo is using it as well, like big time. So this shows that it's been taken seriously now, and the very fact that these big companies are using it shows that yes, it is performing. Yeah, there is scalable. It resolves the scalable issues, and it has performance gains if you use it as a language, as a platform. So what is Node.js? So we are going to talk that like for the next 1 hour, but this has all those golden words out there. Like it is event-driven, it's on V8, it's non-blocking in nature. It offers you non-blocking I/O. What is that? I'll go with, like we will deep dive into that soon. and it is based on asynchronous programming paradigm. All our traditional languages like PHP, where your process starts, it traverses the code, it starts and continues till the end. Your process is occupied the whole time. It just like it's busy the whole time till your code finishes till the end, which is not the same in Node. The way your code is written, it's by inherent non-blocking in nature. So you write your code, which is asynchronous, and on top of it, it's sitting on the libraries, which are again asynchronous. So it's an end-to-end non-blocking solutions. What that means, I'll run a program to explain it further. But first, if you have to install Node.js, how do you do that? You download it from your site. It's mature enough. There are good installer packages available. That's the link, node.js.com. You can download packages for Windows, Mac, Linux. V8 comes with it. You don't have to install it separately. And there's a very good tool, Node Package Manager. It's similar to your peer packages in PHP. It comes with Node. It helps you to install those useful Node modules that are needed to write a website. Basically, there are really good modules out there for caching, for like session management and stuff. So that you can use by using this package manager npm. So non-blocking IO while callbacks. So this is a very simple function. How many of you are familiar with JavaScript? So okay, cool. And how many of you have used Node.js? All right, cool. So this is JavaScript. So what does it do? What will happen if I run this program?
It will output hello and then word after 2 seconds.
Right. So this is a set timeout call we are using in web browsers and JavaScript all the time. It has a console.log in there. So the first argument is a callback. This function is a callback, and then it is saying, let's call this function after 2 milliseconds. After sleeping, let's call this function. And the second call is console.log hello. So I'm going to go to the terminal where I have Node installed on my machine. So I have Node already installed here in this directory, and I'm going to show you this code snippet. So it's right here. It's this code, and let's run it. Let's see how do I run it. I have to use node command and then node hello world.js. It's printing hello and it's waiting for 2 seconds, right? And then it displayed word. So this is what is non-blocking nature and event-driven programming. So in your event-driven programming, you have callbacks. You never have your call like one after another. So if I have to write the same code in PHP, I'll do it something like this: echo hello, okay, sleep for 2 seconds, and then echo what, right? Yeah, something like that. Like if I have to do it in PHP. So what it does here, it's write your hello. Your process is now waiting for 2 seconds. It's actually waiting. It's spinning. Your CPU is spinning, and then you display word. Whereas in Node.js or in JavaScript, when I executed set timeout, it saw that call. It saw callback. So it knew that, okay, fine, I have to come to this callback after 2 seconds. And then it moves on to console.log. That's why we saw console.log, the hello print first and then the word. So your process didn't wait. It didn't got blocked on the first function itself. It moved on. And your CPU for those 2 seconds after printing hello was idle. It was actually 0. It can use your OS. The processes can do different things. Like it can adjust time on your clock, anything. And then after 2 seconds, it came back to your word. So that's what is non-blocking. The way you're writing your program in JavaScript, it's not blocking your process at all. It's freeing it to do different things. Whereas in PHP, you write hello and then it waits. It waits. Your process is tied up. And then it displays word. So it's by inherent blocking in nature. So that's just a small snippet of code explaining what is non-blocking I/O. So let's going back to my presentation here. This is another snippet of code in JavaScript we have always been using in JavaScript. We never realized the importance of it till now when Node actually used it on the server side. But this is the event program, click call on the client side, where your button, on the click of button, you are calling alert. So in the web browsers, this callback functions, on click of it, we are using on click, on mouse over, which are events. So on the click of a button, call this alert. So this argument inside your click is the event handler or a callback function, which gets called when an event happens. So I just wanted to give you an idea of the event-driven programming on the client side, which has always been there. Now it's moved on to the server side. Node, basically the real power of Node is on the server. It's the founder wrote Node just to write a server and use the power of an event-driven language. He was looking for a language which fits this programming paradigm, and JavaScript is the ideal language for that because it has the inherent support for that. So he wrote the HTTP protocol specifically for Node. This is the HTTP module that you include, required, is similar to what we use import, include in our other languages. So you include your HTTP module, it's a Node module. It gives you a HTTP object. Then the second call here is create server. So this is the line which is actually creating the server for you and initializing your server, and I'm here just for the sake of simplicity. I'm putting it in a variable S. Inside the create server, my argument is a callback. That's how we write a code in Node.js. It has to have an argument which is your callback function, and then anybody who's written web programming must be familiar with request response. So whenever a request comes on your server, you have request and response as your parameter that you can use based on your need, of course. And inside that function, I have two lines, response.writeHead and response.end. Let's see what it does. The writeHead is writing the header of your response. Now, so in Apache, in other servers, your server does it for you. But here you're writing your own server from scratch. So you have to specify all this yourself in your code. So the bare minimum, your response has to have a header. So I'm giving a 200 status, which is your status code OK. And then the second argument is a content type text for you. So I'm writing a header for my response. And my second line is response.end hello world. So this is actually doing two things here. It's sending back the body of my response and then ending the call, terminating. So it's the two things in one call. So it's sends the body raw HTML back. In this case, it's a plain text back to the browser, and then hello world, and terminates the connection. That terminates response. So and then coming out of that, the last call is let my server listen on port 8000. So here your server is available on 8000 port. Basically, that's what it makes the server run on 8000 port. Let's see it running and see what's happening here, and then, of course, we'll go into more details. All right. So, yeah. So that's my code here. As you can see, it's the same snippet of code. I've split it here, and the code has response.write and end. In the write, I can just send the body. It's not, the response is not ended yet. I can send these chunks of text back the time, and then the end, and then obj server.listen is listing on the port 2341 here, and then I have a log statement here, server running at HTTP localhost 2341 to show that yes, my server booted up fine. It's started now, and now it's listening on this port for all the connection, for all the calls that's going to come on this port. So let's run it. So I'm gonna run it. Hello web server, of course, no. It's running on this port now. Booted up fine. And I'm gonna go to another terminal here. Let's see. Alright. I'm gonna use curl and see if it's fine, if it's running there. it's there. It's returning back the hello and the world as expected. Let's see if it's running from here as well. Yeah, I can see the response back. Hello world. So this is what this program is doing.
Questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I've tried using Node. So I have a couple of questions. When you put it in production, like, do you run it this on port 80 or you put it behind Nginx or HA proxy or Apache?
Yeah, so Node in productions has of course different settings. You have to use higher port, and of course there are a lot of configurations that is involved when you deploy your site in production. Here I am keeping my presentation, my talk really simple just to have the basic Node. But what all is needed to configure your Node in production is a separate topic in itself. Of course, you have to put it behind Nginx. You have to load balance your sites like you have to have 2-3 processes which are load balancing it for a real world, to handle the real world traffic. So yeah, we can discuss that more into details later on.
Sure. And another question related to like the evented I/O.
Yeah.
So like it's not multi-threaded, but let's say I have. So does it make a difference that I have a multi-core CPU, or will it perform similar on a single-core CPU with a higher frequency? Like what is the
Right. So you say it's not multi-threaded. It's not actually. The code you have in your hand is single process, but underneath it, it's written. It's all C bindings. So you have multi-threads there, which are not in your hand, because the founder always believed that it should not be in the hand of a programmer. The way they are writing code, they should not be worrying about the threadings and all that. It should be the language, your runtime environment should be taking care of that. So in a way it's multi-threading, but it's hidden, it's abstracted from you. So you are doing the process, but of course, based on your development needs, and of course to harness the real power of your CPU, you do need sometimes multiple processes. Node has support for it now. They have recently come out with it. Using clusters, you can do that.
Right.
You can have your multiple processes.
on the same machine?
In the same machine, you can have 2 different processes running. However, they are running in a separate memory space. They cannot talk to each other. You have to call, make realize this just talking to you. So yeah, coming back to yes. So this is a simple server. I mean, it's just doing hello world, right? I mean, very useful. Let's add some code to it and see some real API out there, which is a little bit more useful. Let's see. So I'm going to kill this server here, and I have written a API which is giving me a random number. If I give it a number as a parameter, it's going to return me a random number, and that's the code for this. So as you can see, I've included in one more module, URL here, because I'm going to parse the URL. I'm going to pass to the server in my to get the parameter, to get that number. And then of course it's the right head, and then here we are using this URL module to parse rec.url and then get the query parameters from that URL, which is basically number is equal to something which I'm going to pass while making a connection to the server. And then this is some random JavaScript code, which is very straightforward, like you're changing the data type and then multiplying it and just writing out output number. And then of course write hello, and I'm using the same code, and then it's listening to 2341, and server is running at HTTP localhost 2341. So let's run this and see. So it's running here, and I'm gonna call this, and this time I'm gonna give a parameter. Number is equal to say 678. And there's something in here. Maybe I will dash. returned a random number 23, and you can see it printed hello and world. So what I want to show you one more thing here is Node has a runtime environment. So when I just said Node, it gave me a prompt. They call it REPL, read, evaluate, print loop. It's a very good runtime environment, very similar to what we have in Python also, where you can run and test your JavaScript code on the fly. So let's see our code. I'll open it in the terminal here. And I'm going to take one line of code from here, which is this one, url.parse check.url true query, and I can run it directly on my prompt to see what this particular line does. So this URL, as you can see, is actually required URL. Right? So I'm going to say required URL parse, and then it's taking the parameter as my URL, and then pass an argument true so that it can parse, get the number value, and then dot query. So I'm going to give it HTTP localhost 2341, and this is what our URL look like, 789, true, and then it will have a dot query at the end. So I'm going to run it in the runtime environment and see what it does. So it returned me a JSON object with key value pair number. The value was 789. It parsed it for me. And when I said, and I captured here it in params, and when I said params.number, it gave me the number. So I can actually do it till the end, and I can say dot number, and it gives me 789. And then, of course, I use that input 789 to change the data type to number, and then generated a random number from there. So what I wanted to show you here is this is the runtime environment where you can test your Node code on the fly and see what each line of the code does. That helps a lot when you are developing your code in Node.js. And having said that, you definitely, if you have a big chunk of code, it always makes sense to save it in a JS file and run it with a Node rather than doing it here and trying it out. So let's come out and continue with the presentation. So we ran a server, right? It returned us hello world, and we just did an API also. But developing a website in Node.js is much more than that. You need tools. You need tools to connect to your database. You need tools for session management. You need tools for your functionalities, like we are doing invoicing in UrbanTouch, so we need a PDF kit. So the good thing is there are modules out there which you can use to do the work that is needed for your work, for your website. So we'll go into the development tool chain, what all tools are there, what to generate a real MVC framework website, and then of course testing that website. So there's a very useful framework, Express, out there. It's built on Node, and it's a web development framework. It helps you to create your website. So it's based on your model view controller. What here? We should all be familiar with the same in PHP. So model view controller. Model is something that talks to your data. View is your view layer on the front end, and controller is the handshake between your model and view. So the concept here is same. So we have routes, models, and views in Express. Routes are your controller, and then models and views on the UI layer, and models on the data layer. So the Express helps you to use that structure to create your website, and then write code in that. So it will give you all the folders and start like base site which you can use and just spread on top of it. How we will see that. Other than that, of course, it gives you a lot more. I mean, it gives you view rendering. There are templating engines. We will use one such templates in one of our examples here. So there are different templating engines out there. There is EGS, which is embedded JavaScript. There is Jade, which comes by like default with Express. And then, of course, it has session support and error handling built into it, so you don't have to worry about that. Express gives you methods which you can use for that.
What about RESTful web services?
So, right, so this is based on, this is a REST API actually. So all your GET, POST, Express provide you support for that. I'll show you like how we do it in the routes. It handles those HTTP GET and POST also. So how to install that? NPM, as I said in the beginning, Node package manager, you have to give npm install express, it installs for you. We will be using EGS. For that you have to do npm install EGS and it installs it for that. Expressjs.com, very useful site, helps you to dive deep into what all methods, objects are out there. I mean, it's huge. So yeah.
How is the application package actually like? I think they're all about the same thing. That in production you won't be running a node something, right? You won't be running that file.
Right.
Is the package as a war file or something?
So we have at UrbanTouch deployment scripts. There are sh scripts we have written. So what those sh scripts are done, the repository is in the Git. So you write a script, it gets the code from your branch, whatever the production branch, and then you run your Node.js. Of course, you have to set your production node environment variable. I'll show you the configuration you can do for development stage and production.
My question is actually about dependencies. When you say require URL, right?
Right.
Production is it going to actually fetch the dependency from the internet or?
So there is a package.json file. I'll show you that. Express does it for you. I'll show you a directory structure. So that what that package has is all the dependencies, all the modules that your site needs. So that will have a list of those. And when you run npm install in production, it's going to install everything that's listed in package.json on the environment where you are deploying it.
Package.json is like your form.xml, and npm consider it as table.
In the production deployment, is that normally the production process does not have internet access.
So you can package the JavaScript in a separate folder and copy them. But internet is
I guess you should be having internet.
War file you don't need any dependencies. It's already all the dependent jars are in there.
But you don't, like in your source code Git, you don't check the jars, right? Even in Java.
But on the continuous server, when you build your project, you get a war file, and then you take that war file to the production server.
So these are like interpreted languages. They don't have bytecodes or anything like Java. So they use, like with Ruby also, you have to upload the source code on the server. Similarly with JavaScript, there is nothing compiled like a class file, war or a jar. So yeah, if you don't have internet, you put all the libraries in a folder and point package.json there. I think something like that. If you don't have
copy your JS files there.
I think as a comparison in Rails actually you create a war file anything like this. Even if it's a dynamic language, you finally get a war file.
Yeah.
No, but only JRuby, not in Rails.
Only in Rails.
Rails is like JVM only, yeah. It's compiled like that. These are interpreted languages.
Yeah, it just runs on the V8 runtime environment. So,
Does this have clustering?
so yeah, it goes back to what you were asking about deploying using the multiple processes. So yeah, Node module has come out with clusters. You can have a cluster module. Node has come out with a Node module cluster that you can use to fork your processes in production and harness like multiple codes to use.
Separate machines when load balancer.
So for that, yeah, you use engines for that. It's all like Node.js in production. So yeah, I'm a front-end HTML, CSS, and JavaScript developer, and I'm not like in touch with the real production, how you do that in production, but I have a fair idea of it, but how to optimize it to a limit that you can use your multiple CPUs and then of course have engines on top of it. So I'll show you the UrbanTouch.com architecture at the end of it, what is happening right now. It's a high level, and that will give you an idea of how you use it in real production environment, because it's out there and it's performing.
You usually need a lot of system admin knowledge to
do all those configurations here. So we have an operation team which does that. We have really Node.js geeks at UrbanTouch. If you have some specific questions, shoot me an email. I'll
I was just looking at, like, we have in distributed cluster, we have session replication and all, right? So I was just trying to see how that is done. If you are running it in production system, we are saying like a lot of stuff is there and it's not able to handle. And obviously you should have looked at the clustering approach, right? Load balancer, so that the load is reduced. So
Right.
if that is the case, then how you replicate sessions and how you manage and
Yeah, definitely. They are doing it. I'm sure they are using Redis for your session caching and all. Shoot me an email. I'll answer.
And also, like a single node server can handle easily up to thousands of users, whereas for Java, Ruby, you need a cluster. But Node can handle it alone because of the I/O driven architecture.
So basic web server with Express. So we did a server with HTTP module. Let's see how we can do it with Express. Let's see. So yeah, I have Express. Real basic server, like 4 lines of code, just to give an idea of how to use Express to start your server. So it's using the module Express. It includes it, gives you an object Express, express.create server. Let me open our traditional web server, Node web server, which is using, and then compare that to what's happening in Express. So there we did require HTTP, and here we did require Express. Express module is sitting on top of your HTTP. It's giving you something extra on top of HTTP. So you have everything you have with HTTP and a little bit more. As I said before, Express is written on top of Node. And then they have, with Express object, you have create server, which gives you an object app. Here also with HTTP we had create server, but it always expected a callback function as an argument. Here we don't need to specify it. Instead, you have these HTTP verb method get, post, which are available with Express that you can use. So these are two things that are happening different, as you know. There is a get, app.get, and then as an argument I'm giving a path. And then the second argument is my callback function. So I can actually specify here now for this path, this is my callback function, or slash to this. Whereas in my earlier server, for any path, it was always doing this for me, hello world. Whereas in Express, it's easier for me to specify for slash do this thing, for slash send do another thing, and of course I can specify get and post calls here. And then app.listen, of course, it's listening to port 2341. So this is giving you something extra which you can use to create your website and then use it in the real world. So I'll run it for you. It's log, so and if I say localhost 2341, it's going to start up my server and return welcome to Express. So real basic server, of course, nothing much. Going back to the presentation. So this is something which is generated when you use the express command. I have this is a directory structure which is generated when you run express command on the prompt. And then -t is your template. You can specify what is the templating engine you are going to use for your website. I'm saying I want to use embedded JavaScript as EGS, and my app is my folder name. So when I run this command, it's going to give me this directory structure on the top. It's going to create an app.js for me, a node modules folder for installing all the dependencies. Package.json will have the list of packages my website is going to need, /public for all the static content, images, JavaScript, CSS. Routes is for the routes, they are controllers. Views for the view layers, and models for all the data stuff.
And to answer his question, you will check in the node modules folder is great if you don't have internet. So
Yes, so you will install.
Put it on git ignore, but you can do that.
So let's create a dynamic web page in Node using Express and templating engine in EGS. I have an example here for Twitter. Basically, we're going to tweet and we're going to use EGS as a template to show that on the web page. So I'm going to kill this serve process. And go to tweet. In fact, let me use Eclipse. Help. So I have this. So let me just show you the code. That's my app.js file. Okay. So this is my starting file. This is I'm going to run to start up my server. Express.createServer is going to create the app object. It's going to listen at 23414. I have defined an array, global array here, tweets. App.set view engine, it's setting the view engine as EGS. App.get slash, as I showed in the last program. On this path, do this. So it's doing something more. It's actually rendering my index.egs. I'll show you my index.egs. It's in the views folder. Index.egs is this. It's a form with method post and two input elements. One is a text box and another is a submit button. And in here, I have a tag. It's very similar to what we have in JSP. That you can write your JavaScript variables inside your HTML. So EGS is it's very similar to JSP. You have your HTML code in there with these tags inside it where you want to display your render your runtime JavaScript variables. So here I'm showing display tweets. I changed the name. So display tweets is this. And what this display tweets is carrying, it's carrying this, all the tweets in the array. So I'm going to populate that tweets when. So I have written another route call here, which is app.post, which is /send. It's going to trigger when I'm going to click this button submit, and then the URL will change to /send. And the /send is going to invoke this function here, which is doing what? It's doing a little bit more stuff. It's actually getting the rec, and then rec has a body property to it, which is going to return me the total data in that post request actually. So whatever I'm going to post from my form, it's going to come and to the server and rec.body and then rec.body.tweet. It's going to give me that JSON data, and then I'm going to push that in the tweets array, and then I'm going to render back my index.egs by passing in that value to the variable again. In between here, there is express.body parser. This is a middleware, and what it does is it helps to whatever raw data that I'm getting in that post, it's changing it into my JSON object, which I can easily read with rec.body. It's actually creating and filling in the data in the rec.body. If I miss it, then this will come to the else part, response.send, status not available. So I'm handling it here. So this is my very simple /send handler here. And then another call here, /tweets, just to send back the tweets data and whatever values I have pushed into my tweets here. So there is another file I'm using here, layout.egs. What Express does is, you have an option to specify your layout. So you don't have to write your HTML, this basic template layout on every EGS file. You can specify it in a single file, layout.egs, and then you can use, so there are two types of, there's %= which I just showed you to show a JavaScript variable. There's another way to show your JavaScript, your runtime code in your UI using %- with body. So what this body is, anything that's rendered from here, response.render, goes into the body part of your HTML. So that's why in my layout index.egs, I just had form action. I didn't worry about my HTML document type and then body. So this, you have this built-in support with Express and this templating engine that you can use. So let's run this program. So I'm going to do node app.js. It's running. I'm going to check the port. This one here. It's listening on 2341, so let's. So it's a form that I showed you. You have the text box and you have a tweet button. And I'm going to say hi. And it's displaying that percentage is equal to tweets. It's just, I'm going to say hi again. And it's just going to keep appending. And so there's.
It's fast.
It's fast. It's really fast. It's a beast. I mean, you can actually see the difference. I'll show you how it perform and scale at UrbanTouch right now. How the data shows, the statistics shows how UrbanTouch has improved now as compared to last year. So.
I have a question. Like, so I tried using the same similar application in Express, building it. My problem came like when I had a lot of routes, my app.js just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
I didn't have the JavaScript knowledge to how to split out code between files.
Right. Let me show you that. So that's my next example actually. So as you said right now, I have everything in this app.js here. All my routes are in my main server file. Ideally, in your production environment, it shouldn't be like that when you're developing. The route should be in a separate routes file. So I have this whole code moved to my tweet underscore web app. And as you can see here, you have your images, JavaScript style sheets, and there is a routes folder, and there is a use folder index.js layout, and there is a package.json. That's how package.json looks like. You can specify your dependencies, express, EJS. App.js, see how it has changed. It has no more those routes here, slash, send, and everything. I have moved it in here, in routes index.js.
Module.exports.
Yes, so module.exports does it for you. This is what Node provides you to create modules and use those functions outside your file, in another file that you're writing. So in the routes index.js, we have created this class where you have the variable tweets, and then I'm writing all my get and post routes in here. And how I'm referencing it in app.js, I'll go back. So this is something gets generated when you run that command I showed you, express-degs. So this whole code it comes for you. In fact, that my app, which I showed there, this is my folder. That's how it's going to look to you. This is going to be your starting base point. Here, your app.js is going to look like this, and then you're going to write your code on top of it. So I'm going to close this, not to confuse, and go back to my tweet web app code, and come back to app.js, which is this. You're including your express, and then I'm using module.express to capture that app object here in this variable, because I'm going to pass this app object to my routes here in this require. I can access anything which is exposed using module.exports using the require function. So when you want to expose something, you want to expose a class or object that should be referenced in another JS file, you use module.exports for that. Here I'm exposing it, okay, and then passing app as an argument. From where I'm calling it, I'm going to give require /routes, and I'm passing this app server object here. So that's how I'm linking my routes with my app server.
Is it require.js or similar actually? Is it require.js or similar to require.js?
This is require.js.
Yes. On the
That's the
JavaScript
client side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this /routes, okay, that's another point I should add actually. What it does is, when you specify /routes, it's actually going to the routes folder, and index is your default that it looks for.
Yes.
Had it been help.js, then I had to specify /route/help. But index, it identifies on its own, yes, that's my first entry point, and I should be calling that. So, going back here, this is what you were coming to right, you can configure your development and production environment settings in your app. Anything that goes in app.configure is going to be applied to all the environments. And then if you have some specific settings for your development and production, you can do that in these separate middlewares.
Can I pass some argument to tell Node that this is development, this is production?
Right. So you have node underscore environment env
Okay.
that you use when you're running your node app.js, that you tell it's production development when you're running your app.js. And then it accordingly decides on what lines to use. So here, as you can see, we are setting the app object with the views. I'm specifying view agent as a JS. Here I'm not giving explicit express.body parser to all my app.get or post call here. I've taken that out as I had it in my previous motion. I'm doing it at one place here. Let's use express.body parser. And the similar settings. Here I'm mounting all my routes. Here I'm telling it use /public for my static CDN content. And then of course here I'm including my index, routes index.js app, and then I'm listening to the port express server listening on port this. And these are the various settings, like you can settings.environment, it's going to print what its development production. It's just going to log when your server has started. I'll show you this thing running. Let's run it actually. I'm going to say node app.js. It says express listening on port 3000 in development mode. I'm in development mode by default. And I'm going to hit localhost 341. Oh, it's 3. They are like, we get IO calls, like either file from the system or a networking call. They just wait on that. Whereas Node.js is different. And there are other tools out there in the market. Like you have Twisted, which is asynchronous programming module that comes with Python, which does the same. It is using the asynchronous non-blocking nature. But the problem with Python is the libraries around that, the environment around that is still the traditional synchronous model. So it's not an end-to-end perfect solution. So somewhere you get locked. So whereas Node.js is end-to-end asynchronous. There is nothing, not a single code which can be written without fallback. So that's why it is fast. That's why it's like it can take any number of connections. Because most of the time when you get hits from outside, not all calls are blocking. But if for some reason those 50 or 60 threads got blocked into those IO calls, after that, any number of calls, even if just for loading the page, it's going to slow down the site. Whereas in this case, all your blocking IO calls are handed over to the runtime environment, and you can still, the main process never blocks. It always hand over the stuff to its thread, to its file descriptor, basically under. In fact, if it helps you, I can draw something here, which is the basic Node.js architecture. Which is, can you see it?
Can you see?
Use the marker.
No, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So, let's see. This is all JavaScript. And so these are all your node modules, your Express, all the good stuff. And then everything's C here, C bindings. So let's see, sorry, C language. This is like all your node bindings, your actual node that you install is in C. And then what it's sitting on top of it is V8. That's your runtime environment. And then it uses these library libeio and libev. This is for all your IO calls for threading, multi-threading underneath. This is used And for your event loop, sorry, it uses libev. And this is all in C. You're not exposed to that. You're not using all that in your code. You are restricted to here. Underneath this is what is all the multi-threading or all is handled at this level here. So the whole environment, as you can say, which is exposed is asynchronous in nature and is non-blocking. And all these node bindings are written keeping in mind that your code never blocks and it stays and it performs. No matter how many connections, how many calls are made to your server. So this is what is happening underneath the node actually. So
I have a question.
Sure.
So suppose I'm a web client, right, and I connect to your node server. So since it is asynchronous and event-driven, right, so it opens a socket connection to the node server,
right.
And then suppose I have a query that runs with let's say a SQL server, right, which is blocking, inherently blocking. So saying it reaches the node server, and then from there the loop actually or whatever processes the SQL server, is it that single thread or it's a sub-process of that?
Okay, yeah. So your question is.
And then the second part of that question is the client connection from the web client to the server, is it alive? And if it is not alive, does the server actually push back the result?
Right. So your question is you are making a select call to your database. So let me say it here. So I'm just writing a code. So it's query and you're doing something like a select star. That's what you do, right? You query the database. So this is what you do in PHP. So this is how you write your code. Query, select star, give me the data. In Node.js, when you're going to do this code, it will be different. You are going to write it like this. Select star, and my second parameter will be function. So which is my handler, which is my callback. Here the process is blocked. It will wait till the data comes back. In this case, no, your main process never waits. It realizes that this is a blocking call. It just hands over let this callback know that, okay, when this event, when the event comes, the data is retrieved from the database, call this callback and let me go back to my main process.
So how does callback transfer data back to the client, that is the browser? Does the connection remain open or is it a real push that happens?
So the connection gets activated when the database comes. So main process is always alive, and when that event is happened, that okay, now data is here, this function gets called and there is a response dot anything I'm calling in, and then it sends back the data to the
Node
client.
doesn't close the response. The main process just says, my job is done here, let me wait for the next request from the next user. Earlier what used to happen, the thread would say, I cannot take another request till it completes the first request.
Although the connection between the client and the server remains open.
Exactly.
That no pushes there.
Right. So yeah, so here the statistics from Alexa shows that the load time is now 0.75 seconds for UrbanTouch.com, and 83% of the sites are slower on that. So it's huge. And yeah, with that, thank you. You can find this presentation on ecommerce.com.
Do you use CopyScript or you recommend CopyScript or you want us to stay away from CopyScript?
We don't use.
Okay. Because it makes JavaScript, like writing JavaScript, all this JavaScript not useful.
Or rather, do you use anything for the front end part of this to manage your JavaScript?
So we use Knockout.
Knockout.
Yes, we have used Knockout in one of our admin side. We never tried it on the live side. So we just tried it that at the modules and see how it helps us to write a cleaner code. So we use Knockout for that. But on the live side, it's JavaScript, plain JavaScript.
How long did it take for you to rebuild what you had in Magento?
So when I joined them in November, they were in initial phases. Like they wrote all the basic things and they started. They were still on the live side. We first did the UrbanTouch.com and then the Azure console. So and then it got launched in March, May. So it was like 3.5 months.
Is there a class of web applications that you think are more suitable to be developed with Node.js, or is it like you can build?
Yeah. So wherever you have the need for scalability and performance, of course.
Everywhere.
So this is the perfect language for your server.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have something which is very computing intensive, like something where like metric quantification, right? You have to, your IO is going to spend a lot of time, and that's the need of your application. Their node is not a fit because it's a blocking call, and all the calls are going to be really intensive, and then it's anyway going to take a lot of time. So there you won't see this performance anymore.
And also like push, like when you have WebSockets, Node is the application software to use, because when you're trying to push out small chunks of data from the server to the client, so that's the new thing, right? You don't refresh Twitter, you don't refresh Gmail. When a new mail comes, you see it on your browser, right? You haven't refreshed. How is that? Because the server is pushing data, and Node is the best candidate for pushing data. Ruby cannot do it, Python cannot do it, Java will require WebBit to do it. It's not a EE thing, so Node is doing it.
And that's fundamentally because it's JavaScript on both ends.
Yeah,
does that make it
and
simpler?
like not even because of that, it's because of socket, like because of the event-driven nature. Because you don't have to keep the connection open, all those things come into the picture, and it's very fast. So you can send small chunks of data without actually creating a lot of load on the server.
No, but would it work with browser and server as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. WebSockets is all about.
WebSocket is all about server.
So I have a site.
You have to keep the connection open, right?
No.
TCP connection will be open, right?
It's like socket connection, and it's like a few bytes. And so there's a library you can look at socket.io, and I have a sample site built in it. So it produces real-time graph without refreshing the page from the server. So the server sends data and the graph is built.
No, but it still is polling in nature.
No,
It's not.
It's notification.
That's push.
It's doing
It's not polling. That's the
Comment is HTTP. Comment is like, I guess
long term. It opens the request for a long period of time, rather than.
The comment I believe is like a handy get. You keep the get connection open for
Exactly. Yeah, that's what comment is.
Yeah. So basically, the client has to initialize a get. The get is, the server doesn't respond.
It just sends back data on the same.
Server responds whenever it has data. You just opening a connection and not closing it. That's what it is.
And does it have a ORM? Like because I think that would kill every framework of it. Like I don't want to do SQL. I want to just have objects which interact with SQL.
Not yet.
Because I think that comes then there's no need for Ruby Rails, Django or anything.
Yeah, anybody knows if you use WebSockets on mobile phones, what will be the effect on the battery and the radio? Because the radio is always open. Battery will, because that's why the C2DM and Apple Push are there.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.